Hello, everyone. Hope you all have been well and safe. Welcome again to William H. Hannon Library's ongoing series, Hannon Inside Out, where we connect you to the people who make Hannon happen. I'm Vero, your interview host slash student assistant, and I'm excited to introduce to you today Darlene Aguilar, our Instructional Design Librarian. Thank you again for joining us. I'm overjoyed to have you here. Here she is. How are you doing today?
Hi. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right myself, doing all right. All right, are you ready to get started?
Let's do this.
All right. So, first question. What is it when you tell people you work at a library, what is their typical reaction? Sorry, I jumped the gun. I was like, what is their typical reaction?
There really isn't much of a reaction, I would say. There aren't any really follow-up questions, which makes me think that they either think libraries are boring or maybe they just think I help students check books out. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking.
What a non-reaction. Uh, Yeah, I mean, whenever I ask this question, it's one of my favorites because you either get like there's a really big span of reactions that people usually get whenever it's brought up. So
Mhm.
and the non-reactions are a very common one. Oh, you are not the only one. So speaking of, tell us about your job at the library. What's it like, and what does your role entail?
See, this is what their follow-up questions should be, right? If they
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
what I'm doing, but okay.
yeah.
Well, my job at the library, I'm the instructional design librarian, and I just like to say that I'm the instructional designer for the library. Basically, I create instructional videos and interactive tutorials about information literacy and research skills, like things like how to evaluate your articles or what are the best search strategies for finding your sources or how to use the library databases. So I make a lot of videos also about the library itself, like how to print in the library, how to reserve group study rooms, things like that. So if you've ever watched any of our library how-to videos on YouTube, then you'll probably recognize my voice. So hi, this is me. You can put the face to the audio now.
I know I've definitely, watched those videos, so thank you. Thank you for all the help.
So that's
Uh,
my main thing, right? The videos, the tutorials, but then I also teach librarians themselves about learning science and best practices for teaching. So since we teach a lot of workshops, people don't know that sometimes we teach a lot of workshops to students, and we maintain a lot of learning materials like our LibGuides. So my job is really focused on learning and transmitting the knowledge that the librarians have to students.
I love it, I love it. It's there's a lot. There's the videos, there's the instructing librarians and library stuff. I'm here for it. Speaking of, have you always worked in libraries or in the library scene?
No, actually, this is my very first library job. Before this, I worked at elementary schools in LAUSD, and I provided parents with educational workshops and gave various resources to families to help them remove any socioeconomic barriers to learning. But as an instructional designer, I'm really taught to work with any subject as long as I have the experts in the field that I can team up with. So at the library, I mostly work with the reference and instruction department, and those librarians act as my subject matter experts. So they're the experts in information literacy and research skills, and then I'm the expert in how people learn and in educational technology. So I work closely with them to produce all of the videos and tutorials.
All right. How did you come to be part of the William H. Hannon Library staff?
So after I graduated from my master's program,
Mhm.
I knew it was time for me to take on my new career as an instructional designer. So over that summer, I was looking for jobs with that instructional designer title in it. And I knew that I wanted to work in higher education. So when I saw the job posting, I noticed that it read less like a librarian job and more like an instructional designer. So I applied and I pitched myself in my cover letter saying that like they needed somebody knowledgeable in instructional design and learning science. And then they invited me for a full day interview, which was a lot. I don't know if you've ever had a full day interview, but it's a lot. It's tiring. It's long. That was my first type of interview like that, so I was very nervous, but I did something right because I'm here, right? But it actually started off as a contracted position. So I was only supposed to be here for a year. And so when I applied, I saw it as like my entry level experience as an instructional designer in higher education. And that was back in 2018. So then my position was extended and then it kept getting extended. And now I'm actually set to be the permanent instructional design librarian starting in June.
Congratulations!
Thank
Yay!
you.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I have had, I wouldn't say like a full day, but it was something like 6, 7 hours, and
Yeah, it's
that's
a
yeah,
lot.
and it was like 2 kind of interview sets where it's like, you get a big group one, and then you have a slightly smaller group one, and that was on the same day, which I it's fun. So
It's
yes, I
interesting.
it's interesting, it's interesting. I definitely agree with that. Um, can you explain how what you've learned in your master's program has prepared you for working at William H. Hannon Library in the instructional design position?
Yeah, so yeah, as I said, I'm not trained as a librarian. I have a master's in education and learning design and technology from USC. So that's where I learned how to implement learning science in instruction. And I learned like how the mind works and how easily distracted and overwhelmed the mind can get when learning something new. And I learned the strategies to help manage that. So in my program, I also learned like how to use the technology to help students learn. So that's where I played with the technology to produce videos and tutorials. And then most importantly, I learned how to work with subject experts to pull the necessary information from them because experts tend to leave out like simple steps and decisions that they need to accomplish a task that a novice learner would definitely need to actually learn how to do something. So that's the basis of the program, really.
All right. Yeah, no, when you said the mind gets distracted and there are ways to, I was like, yeah, it really does. And then you mentioned like, oh, there are different things you do. I'm like, very true. There are several different venues that are available that I'm sure you've got the full scope, the full lens of all of the different I can't think of the word, but there's a word where it's like not venues, not avenues, but the closest one I could think of. Um so I know you mentioned earlier, and this kind of ties in, but I know you mentioned earlier that you help librarians and library staff, particularly with instructional workshops and such. So,
Mhm.
how have you helped others in the library adapt parts of their jobs to the online environment when we went virtual?
Yeah, well, before we went virtual, I was already making the videos and tutorials, so we already had a good base for teaching online. Um, but obviously, I did get a lot busier when COVID happened because I started teaching librarians how, like all librarians, how to make instructional videos themselves. So I had a summer workshop series that went through the entire process of creating videos, from like choosing a topic and choosing technology to writing a storyboard to showing them how to record and edit audio and video. So aside from that, that was like a whole summer. Aside from that, I was helping wherever else I could, like with Zoom, for example. I helped
Mhm.
develop like a Zoom best practices document, and I would answer questions from my colleagues about Zoom or help them practice using it for instruction. And I also helped turn our in-person rhetorical arts workshops into a flipped instruction, meaning that students would watch videos for homework and then they would come to the online live Zoom session to ask questions and do other activities.
That's cool. I was wondering how they were doing rhetorical arts in those kinds of classes. Like in my head, I was like, okay, I can kind of picture it, but I don't know the specifics. Thank you for giving me the specifics. Yeah, I was wondering. So I've heard library staff serve on committees or can serve on committees. Can you share something about your service to the library that's impactful for our patrons regarding that kind of area?
Yeah, so I'm on 3 committees right now, It's the web committee, which deals with updating our website. I'm on LEOWIG, which stands for Library Instruction and Orientation Working Group. And then I also created the Accessibility Task Force, which is set to become a committee as well. I think that's actually my biggest contribution to the library is the Accessibility Task Force. Because as I was teaching librarians about like best practices for learning, one of them was accessibility, because if we want to ensure that all students are learning, not just those with certain abilities. So I had them apply some accessibility guidelines to the LibGuides first, and like putting alt text in pictures so that students who use screen reading software, usually because they have a visual disability, so that they can still get that same information from the picture. And then this grew to the point where I got about 10 librarians together. It was about one from each department. And then we created the Accessibility Task Force. And basically what we did was evaluate the entire library, and that included both physical and digital spaces. And then we also looked at our like customer service and our instruction, and evaluated everything for accessibility. And we came up with like a list of things that we can change and improve to help our students with disabilities.
That's so great. I am a really big fan of that. I actually recently attended or I'm in the process of it. I guess I'm watching the video but for the Raising the Bar data visualization, and
Oh yeah.
I specifically left off on the different like with specifically with color blindness, and the different
Mhm.
ways to go about like be considerate of the design that goes in with colors, with, and I'm sure it goes for far deeper, but yeah, I love that. I am a really big fan of that. I so I guess to our final question, do you have anything you would like to say to those watching? Either students, viewers, anyone really?
I'm gonna do some plugs here.
Yeah.
uh, so if you Google like the Hannon Library YouTube page, we do have a YouTube page. So I'm gonna promote that. There's a lot there, a lot of resources, and a lot of my how-to videos that are short, just to teach you either how to use a database or how to use things in the library, how things work. Um, so we have a lot of resources. So that's like the number one thing. Please look out for those resources. It can really help you with your assignments and whenever you're doing research. And I would also like to plug a Discover course that we just finished. It's focused for transfer students, but really it can be for anybody. It's on Brightspace, so you do have to have an LMU account. And it could be either faculty, staff, or students accessing it. It's called the Research and Library Essentials for Transfer Students. We are targeting transfer students, but again, it can be for anybody. And basically what we do there is include a lot of our first year instruction that transfer students usually miss because they come in after the first year of college. And we put it in this course on Brightspace. So it's a lot of our tutorials from the first year seminar and from rhetorical arts, and then some extra tutorials and videos just like curated to best fit new students coming in. So if they want to learn about our library resources, you can go on Brightspace, and I think there's a Discover tab that you can click and search for the research and library essentials.
Awesome. I love those plugins. Those were great. Those were awesome. I second all of those as well. I had no idea about the Discover course. I'm definitely gonna look into that. I
Yeah,
think that's
they're
so
new. So
they're new.
it makes sense. Yeah, they're new. They just started. I think there's only three. Two of them are from the library, and they're really just like asynchronous courses. So it's not like a live course. We're not having daily meetings, and it's not graded. It's not for credit. So you can literally just go in there and just choose the resources that you think will be helpful for you, or do everything, whatever. Use it as best fits your needs. Yeah.
I love hoarding knowledge, so I'm definitely gonna be be spreading word of that, and this video will also be spreading word of that. So awesome, I love it. Well, that concludes today's installment of Hannon Inside Out. Thank you to everyone for watching and supporting us in our endeavors. It means the world and more. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.